it do, chat? Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me? Y'all can hear me? Y'all can hear me? What it do, chat? How y'all doing, man? We got some more reactions coming in today, you know what I'm saying? We just gonna get straight into it. This the first one that popped up on my For You. Joe Rogan goes down to the Anunnaki rabbit hole. Goes down the Anunnaki rabbit hole. Y'all know what the Anunnakis are?
Look, we have 46 chromosomes, right?
Right.
What
Chimpanzees
happened?
have 48.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They discovered that chromosome number 2 was taken out. They call it an artificial mutation. They mean geneticists. Fused together and 2 telomere caps put on, 1 telomere cap on each side. Who in the world took chromosome number 2 out, fused it together, and put telomere caps on it? And they say that it happened as an estimated 200,000 years ago, right at the time that the Sumerian tablets say they decided to make mankind to do the labor. There's no coincidence that the tablets are aligning with modern science. And this means that a couple things. The first thing, it means that we were genetically modified. The second thing that it means is the telomere caps limit our lifespan to about 120 years max, according to Harvard scientists. Now, in the Bible, what does it say? It says that my seed shall not abide in man forever. His years shall be 120. That was taken from the Sumerian tablets, even further back than that, thousands of years before the Bible was written, when Yahweh, a.k.a. Enlil, shows back up, sees the human beings building a tower into the heavens, copying a tower that they themselves had built. It pissed him off, and he said, whatever their hearts decide to do, they shall achieve it. My seed shall not abide in man, his years will be 120. And then he did a genetic modification at that point, I believe, with the telomeres, and he spread mankind out around the planet, and he confused their languages. He had us speaking different languages, so we couldn't collaborate. Now we're in competition, no collaboration, divide and conquer.
And this is the Tower of Babel.
That's it. That's it, man.
So it was all done just to keep us from rising.
Yes. We were advancing too fast, and he had to slow us down. If we shorten their lifespan, then they won't have enough time. By the time they realize who they are and what power they have, they'll be dead. And see, that's what's happened to us.
I feel like he's contradicting what the Bible's trying to say. Well, let's keep watching.
So the craziest version of this story is that they genetically engineered us out of lower primates and put us here to mine gold.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then established different types of civilizations and taught us how to build things, taught us all these different things. And enough time has passed that we've kind of forgotten. Mm-hmm. Enough time has passed. That's the wackiest version of it, right?
Right. That's the bare bones minimum.
Yeah, the wackiest version is that they made us, which is, we've talked about this a couple of times, but how bizarre it is that human beings have this incredible fascination for gold. Mm-hmm. We're fascinated with gold. Yeah. This fascination with gold is really weird. Mm-hmm. Like, why back when it was basically useless? You couldn't make a knife out of it. Right. You couldn't, like, it didn't make sense that this would be so valuable. Just because it's rare, you're barely alive. Right. We're going, right? We're going back to full-on hunter and gatherer, our ancestors with spears and stone chipped, and then after that, gold emerges.
I don't believe that.
And
also.
It stays.
Yeah.
It stays forever. Yeah. Now, when you read Zecharia Sitchin's book, he talks about this in the 1970s. Mm-hmm. His description of it was that they needed to suspend gold particles in the atmosphere because their atmosphere was being destroyed.
Right.
Then you move to like somewhere around the 2000s when climate scientists start proposing this idea of suspending reflective particles in the atmosphere.
Right.
And then when you realize the unique properties of gold, how unusual it is in terms of like a building material, you can coat things. The reason why things are like coated in gold, silver plated, gold plated rather, you can take a tiny piece of gold and cover an enormous area with it. It's a strange metal.
Yeah.
Like really weird. And what, the supposed story is, it's very common on Earth, very rare on Nibiru.
Right. Yeah, that's the story. Now, when I started looking into this gold thing myself, and here's what I came up with. So when you start analyzing the text, you discover that there was an encampment in a place called South Africa at Adam's Calendar. Okay. Now, at Adam's Calendar, there's actually the very first gold mines discovered. They're dating them back to about 200,000 years ago. And that's incredible because there's a building there that looks like a worn down structure. Now, in the tablets, it talks about the fact that the Ijiji, who were the working class Anunnaki beings who were cleaning out the Euphrates and Tigris River so they can create irrigation and, create a bustling civilization. Also, they were doing the actual construction themselves. No people needed, just them working. They were like the construction workers, and Anu and Enki and Enlil, these leader gods, were like, the foremen, the master architects and so forth, right? The boss. So these people were working, but they weren't supposed to be enslaved. They were volunteers. They got tired of doing the work, according to them, for about 250,000 years of labor on Earth, and also, according to them, on Mars. This is in the text. They call it Lamu. And so they decided to go to war against Enki and Lil and Anu.
I need to know where he's getting his information from, because I ain't gonna lie, right now, everything's just all over the place. He's talking about Mars, he's talking about the Nabu people, and then this AI, this AI generated photos kind of messing me up in the head right now.
Because their demands had not been met. So they went to meet them in the Epic of Atrahasis. They go to Adam's calendar. They go to that same structure that was discovered where that gold mine is located. I was like, holy crap, there is some link here to gold. Specifically, exactly, I don't know. But I know if you're an advanced civilization, you need gold. And the people that you have working it for you probably think, it's to adorn or to adorn yourself or in recognition of the gods. So they'll wear it and they'll utilize it, but not for technology. But what's crazy is they go to war, they go to get ready to go to battle, and then Enki says, I have an idea that will stop this war. There's an existing being on this planet, existing, not something that doesn't exist, existing. We can add our essence to it with a slain god. So they're talking about taking the DNA or genetics from one of themselves and mixing it with the DNA of the hominid that was here. It's not specified whether it was, an ape man or anything, but they don't specify in the tablets, but to create a worker being. And they began to do this genetic modification, probably disconnecting some of our DNA, making genetic modifications to us to get us to take orders from them. They inserted something called a worship gene, which was just discovered recently, that human beings have a gene inside of them that can be turned on and turned off. It can be turned off in a laboratory setting. It can also be turned off with a magnetic field around your head. And when it's off, you don't want to worship anything outside of yourself. You look inside, and when it's on, you look to get something from the outside. So this is incredible. And so they made us worship
a gene
yes.
inside of us to make us worship them. Wow, how genius.
That's incredible, because then you're not a slave anymore. You're doing this for the honor of the gods.
And for people who think all this talk is really crazy, I want to put into perspective that we talked about this the other day, that during which war was it where the Soviet Union was experimenting? It was scientists in the Soviet Union, correct? They're experimenting with creating a chimpanzee human being hybrid that they would probably send to war.
Yeah.
So instead of having regular people, we would make this monster, this freak, ape man, and send him to war and have him crush the enemies.
Yeah.
So like, how crazy is that? They knew how strong chimps are. I got an idea. Let's turn a chimp human, and that way, if he dies, who gives a fuck?
Right.
We made him. Get him to go to work for us.
Yeah.
And now if you're a supremely enlightened being, wouldn't you think of human beings with all of our folly and all of our chaos and all of our war and bullshit and the internet and disinformation and misinformation? Wouldn't you think of us kind of the same way we would think about that chimp hybrid thing?
Yeah.
If I was I was the president of Russia, I want my cousins to go to war?
No.
Or I want to send this freak that I made in a lab?
Yeah, and what's interesting, I'm glad you said made in a lab. They had talked briefly in that text about fashioning people. In other words, almost
How did
like...
they say it?
They said the word fashioning. Fashioning a being.
What was do you remember the actual quote?
I would have to look it up, the actual quote.
But they describe it as fashion.
Fashioning, because they said even the lamb hadn't been fashioned yet, so they had fashioned lambs. So they fashioned, and it's also in the Epic of Gilgamesh. They fashioned.
All right, so hold on, let me just get a grasp of what's going on here. Basically, the black dude is saying he read something where these beings from another planet came to the Earth and started using humans as slaves. But the humans were more of like Neanderthal humans, and they hybrided one of their slain species. They hybrided with a Neanderthal and made these slaves that minded gold for them because gold is very useful on their planet, and on this planet it was only used for like, you know, like chains and jewelry and things of that nature. I'm still not really following like what's the whole
The friend
like, I
that
don't know.
Gilgamesh went on the journey with. He wasn't born from a woman's womb. They created him. They created him an artificial being to go on this journey in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So they use that phrase several times in the tablets. But they said, no, wait. It was almost like that's not a good idea because in some ways it seems as if they had known that the idea of making these too many artificially created people wouldn't be a good idea. Now, they didn't go deeper than that. But you can see where we are today with AI and everything else, and these robots that are coming. Maybe they knew something about that, but they decided to take a biological being and genetically modify and program that to do the work, and that's exactly what they did.
Well, if they really knew what we would be capable of and that we would be illogical, overpopulation would be a gigantic issue. And in many parts, I mean, it's not really that big of an issue here except for in cities, but in many parts of the world, it's the whole country.
Yeah.
The whole country is New York City, which
Right.
is just fucking bonkers.
Yeah.
You know, and you got to wonder, that's actually not true. It's like, it's not even that bad, even in China. China has a lot of open space. But when you're in those cities, they are massive and they are filled with people.
Yeah.
And that is probably what you'd imagine a higher being would do if it was like us, like kind of illogical and kind of a little bit reckless and
Yeah.
has a little bit too much technology for the average person that didn't develop the technology. But all of a sudden you got some 85 IQ dope who has access to all the things that all these geniuses have created.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Avatar?
you could figure, we talked to Michio Kaku, he built a nuclear reactor in his house
Right.
when he was a kid.
I heard about that. That was crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I know.
That's so crazy. But there's a lot of different stuff that you can do and have access to technology that is beyond anything you would ever be able to invent with your own mind. But because we share things across the board, you would imagine that if you were an enlightened being from another planet that's a million years more advanced than us, you'd go, I see where this one's going. You know, like you have that cousin who's an alcoholic and then he wins the lottery, like, oh shit, Derek just won the lottery.
Yeah.
Fuck. This is gonna be crazy.
Yeah.
Derek's got $200 million. It's
Right.
gonna be fucking insane.
It's crazy. And they knew they were going outside their own guidelines and their own laws, their parameters, because they made a statement in the text. They said the creator of all is going to punish them, or they would have to answer to the creator of all for what they did here.
That's what
So,
I
and
was
that-
just
that
getting
lets you know
ready
they
to
weren't-
say, like, he's talking about all this stuff rather than just putting out there the fact that there's still an ultimate being, which is God, who we all have to answer to. So what is he? I'm confused with what is these different people from this different universe he's talking about, like the Anunnaki people. Like, I don't know. I got to do more research on what that is because I don't know what those people are. This is new information to me. No care.
Really gods. They knew themselves that they weren't the creator of the universe, but that they masqueraded as gods on this planet.
Just
okay.
like we did when,
kinda
you know,
answered
when
it.
different
Okay.
versions of human civilization would find primitive tribes, you know, like the cargo tribe.
cults.
The cargo cult that you talked about in your documentary. That is so fascinating that during World War II, planes landed on these remote places,
Yeah.
and these people built mock planes to show, like, what the thing was that
Right.
came to visit them that they thought were like gods.
Wild.
Do you think that if the Anunnaki are real and if Nibiru really exists and there's another planet with highly intelligent beings that are far more advanced than us, if that's the case, do you think there's more advanced and more advanced and more,
good
just like
question.
we are to chimpanzees, they are to us,
Yeah.
and then another race is to them, and then it just keeps going on and on forever
good
until you're
question.
God.
Absolutely. I believe there's levels to the game. Just like there's levels in terms of how we live on this planet.
Yeah.
You know, we have a first world, second world, third world, just here on Earth. Now, magnify that as a fractal, as a universe as a whole. You have civilizations that are 1 million, 2 million, maybe even 1 billion years ahead. And every universe every civilization progressing within the universe at a specific rate. So you can have beings that have already maybe even shed their corporeal bodies and only exist as beings of energetic light. And then you have everything all the way back down towards us.
So
You see, I like that visual that we just seen right there. How it went from our solar system to the Milky Way to more solar systems, and like how do the thing I want to know is how do we know that's how far it goes?
Absolutely, I believe there's levels to the
Like,
game,
look,
just like there's
okay,
levels
this
in
is our
terms of
solar
how we live
system,
on
right?
this planet.
And then our solar
Yeah.
system.
Then we have the
is
first world,
within-
second world, third world, just here on Earth. Now magnify that as a fractal, as the universe as a whole.
within this Milky Way, right?
You have
So
civilizations
this is one Milky Way,
that are a
right?
million, 2 million, maybe even a billion
then-
years ahead, and every
More Milky Ways within their own solar systems, within the, you know what I'm saying?
universe
Like, how do
progress.
we even know it goes
every
this far?
every civilization progressing within the universe at a specific rate. So you can have beings that have already maybe even shed their corporeal bodies and only exist as beings of energetic light, and then you have everything all the way back down towards us.
So
I don't know, man. There's a lot of unanswered questions that could only be answered when we see God. You know what I'm saying? But until that day comes, we will never truly know.